Hi, thank you. Again, my name is Richard McCrohan. I live here, and she said all of this, so I don't need to bore you with my. A lot of times when I'm going to conventions or I'm doing book signings and all, I'll always come up with somebody who comes up to me and says, "You know, I've always wanted to write a book. I used to be a lawyer, I used to be a doctor, I used to be a whatever, and I have stories to tell." And I always say, go ahead and write it. Why not? What's stopping you? But, and if it were that easy. Sometimes, like everything, you need to prepare yourself to do a project. And what does it take to make a good writer? Well, where does one start? How do you begin? Well, I'll tell you that there's one thing every single writer does. One thing every writer does, and that's read. Read everything. Read all the classics, read your favorite authors, read the popular authors, be a voracious reader. Also read, if you're going to write, also read terrible books. Read bad writers. Bad writers will sometimes teach you more than good writers what not to do. Because if you're reading a book and you're saying, I'm losing my train of thought here, I'm losing my, what's happening? Obviously somebody has no continuity when they write. If you're not enjoying it, if it seems junky, you want to throw it aside, chances are it's a very poorly written book. But that'll teach you, if you're going to write, what you shouldn't be doing. And sometimes, like when we make a mistake and learn from it, it's a more valuable lesson than anything else. The next prerequisites of being a good writer may sound obvious, but it makes all the difference between a pleasant read and something totally unreadable. And they are a sound and complete understanding of English grammar. And I mean, that may seem like a no-brainer, but that goes far beyond just knowing not to say, he ain't got nothing.
Or nothing.
Or nothing. Or he ain't got nothing no-how. Grammatical rules are vast. I mean, there's books you could buy on rules of grammar. And they're steadfast. They don't change. What was poor grammar in 1950 is poor grammar today. And you should know the difference. Like rules of etiquette, some things have loosened up in modern times, but the core rules are still there. And they're still steadfast. The second thing is you should have a very large and wide range of vocabulary. Like anything, there's about 10 words that you could use in place of something to describe, but only one of them is the perfect word. Having a wide vocabulary is going to let you find that perfect word, because you'll know it, rather than put something in that it'll do, but it doesn't quite say what I want it to say. And it'll save you from going to a dictionary every 2 minutes trying to find something to see. If you have to do that, maybe you shouldn't be writing. Another thing that I just also want to touch on when you're writing, a lot of people don't realize, is research. Research is extremely important. And each book I do, I research my subject first. Right now I'm going to start another book, but I have another couple of months of research to do before I get into it, because I want to make sure I have all my facts right and I know what I'm talking about. You know, whatever you say, and it could be something as silly as, you know, he pulled out his Glock pistol, took the safety off, and fired it. Sounds right? Sounds, you know, exciting. But there's going to be the one guy, or 8 guys, who are reading going, Glocks don't have safeties. What is this guy talking about? He doesn't know what he's talking about. Already, you're losing him. Already you're losing him. He's not trusting you. He's not trusting your word anymore, because now he knows more than you do. So what does he want to read? What do you want to say? In one of my previous books, I was writing about a fire in a hospital, and it was in a small town. Well, the first thing I found I needed to do was, once I knew how big the hospital was, I needed, when they call the fire trucks, are the ladders going to reach? Well, what kind of fire trucks does a small town have in their fire department? How high do the ladders reach? Do they have hook and ladder? Do they have, you know, there's about 5 different types of fire trucks. Which ones do they have? And if they don't have them, how do they get them? So I'm online, I'm Googling fire departments, different type of fire trucks. Just to make sure that when I have the truck pull up and he goes up to the 8th floor, there's not some firefighter sitting reading my book going, we don't have trucks that do that. I have to call to the next county and get that, where they have a bigger fire department. So you always have to research. You know, even if you write fiction, it should be fact. And that kind of sounds like a contradictory statement, but even more so when you write fiction, because if you're writing fiction, especially in my genre, where you're writing scary books or horror books or whatever, and you're asking the reader to believe in something that doesn't exist, already that's a stretch. If I say, I'm writing a book about zombies, and you're going, yeah, okay. I can't believe it. Well, it's my job to make you read it and say, I could buy that. The way he has it and the way he wrote it and the symptoms and what he had caused it. Oh, I could buy that happening. About a school bus accident. I know it sounds horrific already, and yes, it is. But the basis of that book came when I was about 7 years old, and it wasn't a school bus accident, thank God. But what had happened, where I lived in North Jersey, we were right across from Route 46. I mean, right across. There was no wall, there was no fence, nothing. Just you cross my street, you walk on the grass and Meridian, and then you walk right into Route 46. 4 lanes of highway. One night, there was a loud screech. Woke the entire neighborhood up. It was about 1 a.m. Woke the entire neighborhood up. Everybody ran out to see what it was. What had happened was there was a car full of kids speeding down the road. in what was then termed as, I guess, a hot rod. And the way the road curved, it made to turn off, came like this in a sharp turn. Well, if you weren't familiar with that, you wouldn't know that was going to come up at you. Apparently they didn't know. Went up the ramp, 5 kids in the car, across all the lanes, through the guardrail and into the Passaic River. All 5 died. My father and I walked up there the next morning. It was a Saturday, because everybody was curious to see what happened. And I went with him. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget the smashed guardrail, a tire and half of an axle in the water. And I'll never forget, there was a plaid shirt hanging from one of the branches of a tree, and I couldn't take my eyes off of it. Because that brought the humanity of it back. Like, oh my God, that was somebody's shirt. And I never forgot that. And after we did that, we went up, they had taken the car and towed it up to a garage near my house until we decided what to do with it. And we went to see it, and it was just completely smashed. And they find themselves going, in your book, maybe not exactly what happened, but the gut feeling that you got from it comes out in the book, and probably makes it even more powerful because you're now writing the book now, but you're 8 years old again, looking at that shirt.